Last night I was scrolling when I saw this video.
Please, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. Somebody help! Somebody!
And it instantly reminded me of the real disappearance of Sandra Hughes, because it involves a woman who disappeared in the Sierra National Forest. Eventually, she was presumed dead, but over the next year after she disappeared, many people have claimed to see her, or possibly her ghost, not my words, in the area where she went missing. And each time they see her, she looks distorted and in a worse condition. If you want to lose sleep tonight, stick around and let's talk about it. Just a little disclaimer, I covered this case last year, but I wanted to talk about it again because she has still not been found. Sandra Hughes was a 54-year-old woman who loved the outdoors. So when the pandemic first started, she took the opportunity to solo travel and spent a lot of time in the wilderness all by herself. Sandra last spoke to her family on June 26, 2020, and this is when she told them that she was going to camp alone in the Sierra National Forest. She was really excited as she'd spent the last 6 months in California, often camping alone and gaining a lot of experience in the outdoors. She was actually known to be an outdoor expert and survivalist. So when she told her family about her upcoming Sierra National Forest solo camping trip, they weren't initially too worried. So off Sandra went. But it wasn't long into the trip that things started to go wrong. And no one could have expected what was about to happen to her or other campers in the area for years to come. On July 1st, 2020, a couple of campers were hiking near Johnson Meadows just above Bass Lake in the Sierra National Forest when they stumbled across an abandoned campsite. It was a really eerie scene because it looked like the campsite had been completely destroyed and a bunch of things were kind of just strewn around. The campers then found a folder that contained some important documents, like a birth certificate and a social security card. With the campsite being destroyed like this, the campers felt like something was really wrong. So they called the police to report this. And when authorities arrived, they found that the campsite and documents belonged to Sandra Hughes. And when I covered this case last time, a lot of you guys were pointing out how weird it was that she carried around like her birth certificate and social security card on her camping trip. But I just wanted to point out that I personally don't think it's that weird. Like this wasn't just a quick, couple of days or weekend camping trip. She had been gone for like the last 6 months of her life, and she had no plans to return to normal living. So, I don't personally think it's weird that she took these important items with her. So when the police arrived, at this point in time, Sandra wasn't a missing person, but they did find it odd that all of her personal belongings were just abandoned like that. So they started to look for her to see if she was okay. Nothing immediate was found. But then 3 days later, Sandra was spotted. And this is where the story starts to get strange. So on July 4th, Sandra ended up crashing her car near the Chiquito Pass trailhead in Madera County. This wasn't very far from her abandoned campsite, and the crash didn't appear to be that bad. Other campers were around when it happened, and according to them, Sandra somehow collided with a tree, and her car ended up high-centered on a stump in a ravine. Based on witnesses and the damage to her car, Sandra wasn't going very fast at all at the time of her crash. Since other campers were around, they offered to help her, but Sandra refused, saying that she was okay. She was then seen walking into the woods alone, and what happened after this has never been explained. It was at this point that Sandra was officially reported missing, and authorities became more concerned after her car crash. A massive search was launched for Sandra, and over the next few days, she was seen 2 more times by separate campers, barefoot with a bruise on her face. At the time, the campers didn't know that she was a missing person, but they did try to ask her if she was okay or if she needed any help because she did look a little bit distressed. According to them, Sandra seemed like she wasn't there, and she ignored anyone that tried to talk to her, continuing to walk deeper into the woods alone. Because of this, authorities thought that Sandra may have suffered a head injury after the crash, just due to her bizarre behavior over those few days. But like I said, she wasn't going very fast at the time she crashed, and the damage to her car suggests that it wasn't that bad of a wreck. And those who talked to Sandra right after the fact said that she didn't appear injured. But I guess if you have a head injury, sometimes it's not really that easy to tell. So authorities cracked down on their search and brought in multiple different agencies, tracking dogs, and even searched for Sandra by air. But at first, nothing was found. Then, a few days later, search and rescue found Sandra's sleeping bag inside Yosemite National Park, just 2.5 miles from the crash site. The sleeping bag matched her recent REI purchase, so they knew this belonged to Sandra, but she was still nowhere to be found, and authorities started to lose hope that she would be found alive. Then, seemingly out of nowhere a month later, Sandra was seen by 2 hunters. They are pretty adamant that it was her, and they say they saw her leaning against a tree near where she crashed her car a month month earlier. The hunter said she made eye contact with them, but didn't try waving them down for help. And at this point in time, she didn't look distressed or anything like that. They did say that she was noticeably thinner than her last known photos on her missing person poster, though. After this, Sandra's case kind of went cold again. And to make things more difficult, a massive fire broke out in this exact area in September of 2020, and it lasted months. This burned up any potential evidence and quite literally changed the terrain. But surprisingly, Sandra's car didn't burn at all. Authorities had left it in the same spot where it crashed, hoping Sandra would return to it, because with her outdoor experience and multiple sightings, it really did seem like she was still alive out there somewhere. But after the fire and it being untouched, authorities then removed it since it was clear that Sandra would not be coming back to it. There would be no movement in this case until almost exactly 1 year after Sandra's disappearance. And what I'm about to say is genuinely so creepy. I get goosebumps every single time that I talk about this. So in July of 2021, a random family decided to go camping in the Shut-Eye Peak area. They brought their four-wheeler, so it was going to be a really fun time, or so they thought. About halfway through the day, they stopped to eat lunch, and this is when their 3-year-old son started pointing out their car window to an open meadow. He told his parents that there was a woman laying face down with her legs straight up in the air in the middle of this meadow. The 3-year-old said that this woman was dead and she wasn't able to talk or move, but that she needed their help. This freaked his parents out so badly. I mean, can you imagine your little kid telling you this in the middle of the woods? So they went to go look around this meadow, fully expecting to see a dead body. But no one was there. It was literally just them in this open meadow. When they went back to the car, their 3-year-old proceeded to say that this woman was still right there in the exact same spot, and that he was pointing directly at her. The woman was wearing a black shirt and jeans, and she had blue hair, and unbeknownst to him, this was exactly Sandra's description to a T at the time she went missing. He just kept saying this woman is dead and she needs their help. And since his parents couldn't see anyone, this freaked them out enough to make them pack up early and head home. When they got home, they decided to post their experience on Facebook to see if anyone knew anything about the area. And this is when they found out about Sandra Hughes, who matched the ghost description to a T. They then found out that she disappeared within 5 miles of where they were in the woods. So the parents gave this little boy a bunch of photos, some including Sandra, and he picked Sandra out as the woman he saw in the meadow immediately 3 separate times. The Madera County Sheriff's Office somehow saw this post online and actually contacted the family for more information. Sandra's case was still unsolved, so they thought it couldn't hurt to investigate this tip, even if it was paranormal and turned out to be nothing. So the police, the little boy's dad, and the little boy went back out to where he had seen this dead woman / ghost, and authorities swept the area for literally anything, but they found absolutely nothing. Over the years, there have been multiple searches for Sandra, but it's like she vanished into thin air. Although it's not clear what happened, she was listed as a lost / injured missing person. Her family says she was extremely organized and tidy and would have never left her campsite abandoned like that. There are a few theories as to what could have happened to her, ranging from accidentally dying of exposure, whether it was from a head injury or not. She could have been met with foul play at some point, or she could still possibly be alive out there somewhere, although the chances of that are slim. And some people even believe that her ghost is now haunting the wilderness where she was last seen, and that all of those sightings of her are real. I do believe in ghosts, but I'm not entirely sure what to believe in this case. Regardless, it's now been 6 years since Sandra disappeared, and whatever happened to her that summer night in the Sierra National Forest remains a mystery.